GT Holidays, South India's #1 travel brand.
Jenson and Nicholson paints. Whenever you see color, think of us.
GUVI, a vernacular edutech brand, skilling everyone everywhere.
Like, I will not watch a film which has got no emotional rooting, and we're talking about John Wick, and then Chad says that we want to make a remake of Kill.
You know, when I watched it, I didn't feel the need for the love story because
I will only start writing once I see how the film is ending, because I feel like Shivne, he made a cut and he called me and he had thrown off like some 12-13 minutes at all. He said, "Sir, nahi zarurat hai iska." First time you feel, oh my, it's 12 minutes you have thrown off.
Yeah, I struggled during the shoot. Hi Nikhil, welcome to Galatta Plus. Congratulations on the reviews that Kill has been getting. One of the things that struck me when I saw the film was, why hasn't anyone thought of this before in India? Like make a full-on action movie. Why, so why do you think this has not happened?
I think we've all been waiting for this. Because in the last few years, if you've seen the kind of action films are happening, it started with War and Jawan, Pathan. So all these kind of films, these are leading up to that.
Right.
And I feel even in South, Rocky. So so those kind of films I think we're just reaching this place, and I think it was my time to do this.
Right, but those are still, partly the Hindi cinema DNA is there in them, in the sense of when you look at War or when you look at Pathan or something, it's not just action. Action is a part of the a bigger narrative.
Correct.
Whereas this action is the narrative.
Yes.
That's what I was talking about.
Yes. So I think we've been little, apprehensive of doing this. That's what I feel. And in fact, even when I wrote this story in 2016, I thought that nobody's going to make it. So I was waiting. But what actually happened is, I feel this pandemic has changed a lot of ways how people are, perceiving films. I mean, during pandemic, what happened was a person who's sitting in a Muzaffarnagar or somebody who's sitting in a Darbhanga, he has had an access to world cinema, he's had access to Southeast Asian films, and he has seen all those kind of films. So suddenly I feel there's a kind of consciousness which has just come up in terms of awareness from the audience's point of view also.
Okay.
And I feel that's actually, even that gave me that kind of a confidence that this is something which we can try doing it right now.
Right. A 1 hour, 45-minute pure action movie.
Pure action film.
Right. So one of the issues, problem, whatever you want to call it, is of doing a pure genre film is that there's inevitably going to be comparisons, as in this is like that movie or like that movie for Raid or whichever film you take, because John Wick or whatever it is, because Hollywood and other industries, they perfected this genre film for decades, and for us it's always been the thali meal concept of all the emotions put together in a movie, including violence, right? Yes. But when you have a violence, you'll probably, on the other hand, you'll also have a mom and son scene or a brother and sister scene or something like that, so that kind of balances out. Whereas this pure genre thing, were you ever worried that people are going to say, oh no, this looks like that, this looks like that, this looks like that?
To be talking about a John Wick or the Raid, or these are landmark films. These are these are huge films. So even if Kill is being spoken around these films, it's a huge compliment. And you're right, because it's never been done before. I feel a very similar film, I'm not saying like an action film, but a very similar kind of a structurally was Badlapur, which Sriram Raghavan did that, and he almost did that. It starts off like this. It's even the entire film. It's just it looks like a genre film with not so much of violence, but but it looks like a genre film. Yes, because it's not been done before. People are not aware of it, and we have never experimented. We have never tried to do this. So obviously, the comparisons will be drawn with the Raid, Night Comes for Us, or John Wick. But it's I feel it's like a compliment. Like, you know, you if we're talking about a John Wick and then Chad says that, you know, we want to make a remake of Kill, it's
yeah.
almost like a validation.
What was the film on your mind when you said, I want my film to have the intensity of X movie? There's sometimes we think of a reference movie, right? What was your reference movie?
You know, I had a very different reference for my film. I had Aliens.
Okay.
I had Aliens, that James Cameron Aliens.
Actually, that's not doesn't sound odd because that's very intense.
Yeah, that's a very yes.
Yeah.
Because you know, I knew that, you know, of course there is violence is there, action is there, and that's an integral part of the narrative. But beyond that, it needs to be a very emotional story. It cannot be a story which is just about one action piece after the other, because if I am watching a film like that, it is going to exhaust me as well. Like, I will not watch a film which has got no emotional rooting and I'm just, you know, just watching for the heck of, oh, this is a great action piece, so this is a great action piece. And Aliens, I've like visited and revisited that film a lot of times, and I found, you know, it's a very, it's a great structure, it's a great telling, because there is this alien who's trying to protect its young ones, and there is this Ripley who's trying to protect the kid. Now we are looking at the film from Ripley's point of view. That's the reason why we find alien is the alien is the villain. But if you look at it from like an eagle's point of view, both are trying to protect someone.
Yeah. Basically, it's the story of two mothers.
It's basically the story of two mothers.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what I had in my mind when I was writing Kill, because I wanted it to be a film where your point of view as an audience, it should keep oscillating between, oh, am I with the goons? Am I with my protagonist? Am I rooting for them? Or I'm feeling the loss. When they're feeling the loss, even I should feel the loss. And that's what that's where it comes from. So that was my reference point.
Nice. Well, I love the Alien series. I mean,
yeah.
even the much maligned Alien 3 by Fincher, I just love that movie.
Oh yeah,
because
it's
just,
amazing.
Yeah,
And the entire series till now. Like,
yeah, anything with Alien in it, I'm in there. I want to watch that movie. It's just like there's something very pure about, you know, being stuck in a place, whether it's space or inside a train or anything where there is no outside world. You know, the world is only that one place, and you have to battle it out within that one space. You know,
yeah, it's
like
a pressure cooker situation. At the end of the day, it's a pressure cooker situation.
Yeah.
And even that, like what you're saying, even in Aliens, it was like that was a place.
Yeah.
There was no outside intervention which was coming.
Right.
And when it came very late.
This is a no flab movie for the most part. Now, I want to talk about your writing, right? Was there an earlier draft where you had a little more of the love story or a little more of the story of the bad guys and their familial equations? Just did you have so that the audience could sink into that first and then the action begins? Was that how it was?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was. So there was a bit more of a romance. There was a bit of their Amrit and Tulika's story, a little bit more of Amrit and Tulika's story. And yes, even with the goons, even with Funny and Beni, there were certain scenes which was depicting their their tension and their conflict. So written it down. I'd written so it was almost like 10 to 12 more minutes of the script, and we went and shot it also. So it's not like that I limited myself to, okay, let's not go and shoot it. But we shot that, and when the edit came, so my process is this, that I don't sit on the first cut at all, because I'm too invested in the shooting process, and if I am trying to influence the editor, then it's the same, it's the same story which is being told. So, and I feel editors are their storytellers on their own. So I gave it, left it to Shiv. Or for Shiv ne, like, he made a cut and he called me, and he had thrown off like some 12-13 minutes at all. He said, "Sir, nahi zarurat hai iska." And it's the first time like you feel, oh my, like it's 12 minutes you have thrown off.
Yeah, I struggled during the
Yeah, I
shooting
struggled.
days.
Yeah, it was, and we were shooting in Amritsar. That part was in Amritsar, and it was like top sun. It was summer, peak summer. I sweat out so much, and I had a slip disc. I'd suffered a slip disc, so it was like too painful for me. And then I started watching, and I said, I didn't miss it. I said, I don't miss it at all. So rather, it makes the experience even more engrossing. I felt more invested. I said, there is no flab, which is a great thing, and we stuck to it.
When I watched it, I didn't feel the need for the love story because that's a given, right? And,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you don't need much explanation there. But I felt I could have used a little more of the background of the gangsters, or the bandits rather. That was my personal feeling, because that's a new equation. Because for the first time, I'm seeing a generational conflict about how an elderly member of that bandit clan thinks about something, and a younger member, a more impulsive member, thinks about something. It's like a typical generation gap. And
Yeah.
one guy is saying, no, we should kill this person, and the other guy is saying, no, we should take this person hostage, because it's like, and there is that friction between them. And I was like, okay, this would be a little interesting to get into, because I never get to see, like, usually what happens is there's a villain. He hires a bunch of specialists. One may be a safecracker, one may be a something, one may be a something. They're not a family.
Yeah.
They're not they become a kind of family in that they're going to execute something, but they're not related
Related
or
to people.
they're not of the same thing. They're just there to do a job.
Correct.
And they come together to do that job. But this is actually a family.
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been interesting too.
So there was a scene, you know what, and when I started writing it, funny came to me first. Amrit did not come to me first. It was funny. So, and there was a scene in which Funny and his like couple of cousins, they go and loot a doctor. And just Funny is the way he is, impulsively he says, I'll get your BMW also. So he drives the BMW and comes to the garage where Benny works. Like it is Benny's garage. And Benny says, are you out of your mind? Isme GPS laga rehta hai, they're going to track you. So you just go and, drop this car back on the highway. And it infuriates Funny. So the conflict was set over there. And because he said that, I can get too many cars, we can get rich faster. Why are you resisting me? And so that was a setup which I had used. But then that setup comes back in the film. So then I thought that it's a
Repetition.
It's a repetition. So might as well use that which is within the film itself, which is a part of the story, and not something like just as a setup.
Okay.
So that is something where whatever I wanted to, but I felt like it's a flab.
Right.
I thought it needs to go.
Now, did you name Funny and Amrit to be opposites of each other?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the thing is, his full name is Funny Bhushan, but we never call him Funny Bhushan ever. We just call him Funny.
Yeah.
So when you say Bhushan, that's when the Shiv's avatar comes. But when you're saying Funny, it's just a snake.
It's a snake or poison or whatever, and the other guy is Amrit.
Amrit.
So this
Yes,
is like.
yes.
I was just wondering if I picked it or just like you intended it.
Also, Amrit comes from Amritsar because he is supposed to be from Amritsar.
Okay. Right. How do you write an action movie, in the sense that, let's say you're writing a drama with action? You establish the hero, you establish the heroine, you establish a love angle, then you establish a conflict, and that conflict leads to the action. So you have breathing space between the action set pieces to write other things, like maybe even a song or something like that. I don't know.
Sure.
But when you're writing a pure action movie where it's literally one set piece after another and one set piece after another, what is the writing process like?
It's I have a very weird process of writing. I don't write till the time I don't see the end.
Until you know how the movie is going to end.
How the movie is going to end.
Right.
So what I do is I see the entire film in my mind, like I'm living with that story for almost a month or something, a month and a half, where I will just keep imagining or just keep thinking what my this scene is going to be, how my character is going to be moving, what is the next scene, and I will just, like, I don't even make pointers.
It's all in your head.
It's all in my head.
Okay.
And I will only start writing once I see how the film is ending, because I feel that till the time I don't see the end, the story is incomplete. Because I don't want to start something and then not have, like, I don't know how to end it, and how to assimilate it, how to get it right. So I just keep thinking for almost a month and a month and a half and 2 months, and so there is no method. There's no method to this. When I started writing this, so it's mostly it's thinking. It's not like writing. I had to first write a very, very strong emotional experience. Like I had to, because it was almost like a consciously, I was very conscious of the fact that it needs to have a very emotional rooting. It needs to have a very emotional reason for anything. Then I figured that, okay, it can have this action piece, it can have that action piece. But especially with Kill, what I did was I would look at Funny's journey and I would look at Amrit's journey. Normally, what happens is, normally when I'm writing, I create a story and then I put my characters. Here, till the first half, I was making it Funny's journey, and after the first half ends, I let Amrit loose, because I did not want to control him. Normally, what we do is we build a story around that character and we want the character to move in a particular way. I let him loose. I said, let him find his own path. And this is the first time I did this. I'd never done this before. Because I always, always as a writer, you always want to control your characters. You want to control the situation. Right. And when I did this, it was fruitful. So when I started writing, because I'd never done an action film before, I was not able to visualize it, like how can I do the action pieces. And so I called up a couple of action choreographers and said that, is it possible for you to help me in this, because I've never done it. And they said, sir, aap likh dijiye, this is the action, we will figure out the action. But that was not possible, because with that action piece, the story is moving forward. So I could not have left it for somebody else to figure out how the action is going to begin and what is the ending point of the action, because it's all both a part of the journey. So I had to write the action, and when I started writing the action, I would do ghost fighting and sit down and then again write it. Then again, I used to play Amrit, I used to play some other goon, and then I would do their parts, and I would keep writing. So that was the process. So there was, I don't know that there is a certain process to this kind of a film. For earlier films, I always had this process. I know there are plot points and there are stuff. Like here, I just let him loose. I just let him go and find his own path.
No, you said something interesting. You said, I need to know what the ending is. But in a movie like this, unless you're really subverting the genre, isn't the ending almost that the good guy wins?
How he wins.
How he wins.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mean probably the last half an hour, 15 minutes, something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
How he wins, and more importantly, what is his mental state? Because it's very important for a film like this, where I need to know what his mental state is. Like, is he broken? Is he physically? Of course, he's broken. But what kind of a situation he is going to be when he has killed all these 30 people and in a matter of 1.5 hours? How is he going to be, how is it going to affect him?
Right.
Whether he'll be able to understand what he's done, or he's still in that phase of grief and rage. I needed to know where he will be as a person. When I was writing, I was thinking that he would be completely broken person. He would come back and sit alone. Maybe he will not get up from he'll get down from the train. There were too many things which were happening, but this felt like, is the logical way this would end.
Again, in an earlier draft, was there ever a draft where the hero was not a commando and just an ordinary guy?
No, it was always a commando.
It was always a commando, because you wanted a skilled person.
Yes, a skilled person. It needed to be believable, because the entire story is set in a train where there are passengers, and where, I wanted a journey where when you are watching as an audience, I want you to believe this is going to happen.
Right.
it's a very realistic journey which needed to happen, and suddenly some guy who doesn't have a command that skill set comes and starts killing people. I will not believe it.
Right, right. The interval point is probably for everyone the biggest shocker, right?
Yeah.
Because that's something you don't see coming. Again, were there discussions about whether or not to do this, or it was always, always it was that?
It was always that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was extremely sure of that. Like I wanted this to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was no discussion on that. Like, yes, there were discussions amongst among the stakeholders, and like they were used to talk and like we used to jam. That should we do this or should we not? I said no. This film doesn't work if it doesn't happen.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
Right. And it feels so right because it adds to the brutality of the world.
Yeah.
The film is set in.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of
it gives you that it empowers, not it empowers is wrong, but it gives you that emotional reason, that grief, because you see protect someone, to save someone, and to give that kind of a loss and pain is such a primal emotion. It can give you the reason to do so many other things.
Right.
Like love is something for which you can go to any bounds.
right. But the way I'm seeing it is also that this is a place where there are no rules.
Yeah.
That's like, so anything goes, right? It's like, you're breaking one of the cardinal rules of Indian cinema, probably.
Yes, yes.
So that's part of the brutality, of this film is that anything goes.
Yes. Like I was saying, that I let him lose after that. I let him lose because he would find because after that there is nothing which is stopping him.
Right.
There's nothing, the moral compass breaks over there. There is, of course, when you're an army person, when you're an army officer, there's a huge moral compass which you function with.
Right.
It dismantles there. It is not something which is going to hold you back. There's nothing to hold you back after that. And that is the reason why whatever happens, that the carnage happens, is because of that.
Because of that, yeah. Tell me a little bit about you've written this, now you're going to make this, right? I'm not saying writing is easy, but this is such a physical production, as in it's set on a train, it's like there's it's set in a train, there's like very, very limited space to shoot. The train is a set.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So the thing is, what was that like? I mean, the planning for the shoot.
When I finished writing, I thought, wow, I finished it. Like, it's great. But writing is one thing. You can sit down and write whatever you want to write. But when I started to get the team and when we started discussing, it just felt like an impossible task. Because nobody had done this. Of course, there are sets of trains, but the kind of train set which I wanted was something which should be, each and every wall should be movable or collapsible. Think of it as one thing, when you're looking at execution. And so I had never done this, my DOP had never done this, Sikya had never done this, Dharma has done action films, but they have not done this kind of an action film. So nobody had done this kind of a thing. And it was just hit and trial method. So we would start working on something and we'd figure out, this is not happening. We first decided, let's try and shoot in an existing, like let's get a train coach and break it down and make it. But that was not possible. So, but like to do that, there was a process, like you getting in touch with the railways, trying to figure out, going and visiting the train and seeing is it possible or not possible. Then you realize, no, it's not possible. Then you come back to drawing board. So every time you go in a certain path, then come back, then again redraw. And it was just like we were lucky that we figured out our way very soon. First set, thanks to Mayur Sharma, like he's a production designer. He was with him also. It was when I told him that this is what we need to do. He disappeared for a month, and I thought, he's gone. Like, he's not coming back. He's not coming back and telling us that, so we almost like started talking that maybe we should get another production designer. And when we were just talking about that, the next day he comes back and he says, I have a blueprint ready. And then he said, like, he said that give me 10 more days, I'm going to come back. And he came back with a miniature. Like, that miniature was with cardboard, there were sliders in it. And looking at it, you felt, इसमें तो ठीक है, इसमें बन जाएगा. If you have to make it like in a big set, how do you do this? And I don't know how it was done, because we needed the actual material which was used in the train. So that needed to be put in. And so he constructed a 6 feet platform on which that was mounted. Like, so it,
What do you mean by material?
the same material by which a train is made.
Oh, the like, with the berths and this.
Berths, the walls, everything.
Right.
Everything. So we were actually constructing a train.
Right.
We constructed a full-fledged train with hydraulics, with pulleys, with channels, with push and pull options. But it was a proper train. It was not like, we made it with cardboard, or we made it wood.
When you mean train, you mean you made 3 or 4 compartments?
We made 2 coaches.
2 coaches.
And that was an actual train. It was not like, a set material which we've used. So it took like almost 7-8 months to get there. So see, it was always like everything was hit and trial. Like, there was nothing which was, which we knew that, normally in a set, what happens is, like, your lights are going to be here,
Right.
your set is going to be like constructed like this. There is no physics attached to that, apart from the fact that you're just building up a set.
Right.
But here everything was making that, and not letting it fall down. That was a huge thing, because it was too heavy.
Right.
Then lighting, then it comes to lighting, because the space is so much that you can't put any light in it. There is no light which can be put in. So Rafe sir, what he did was he put lights everywhere, like
Your DOP.
yeah, my DOP. So if you look at it, it's all like top lit. So the lights it's almost like service lights which we've been used to light up the entire set. If that was not enough, then the shooting itself, like, there is no space for the camera to move. We used Steadicam for very less time, because after a point of time, Steadicam could not move because there was no space. So another kind of equipment was invented, like it was made. So it was, the entire process was a discovery process. It was not something which we knew that, we were going to figure out. And all of us, like Achin, so Guneet's partner, Achin, my associate director, Rishabh, all our HODs, they were like constantly, we were like, day would not be enough. Every time, even at 11 o'clock in the night or 12 o'clock in the night, I used to tell them, like, please go home because we have to come back again in the morning. So every day would be such a long day.
What was the first day of shoot?
Oh, when I entered the first day of shoot, like I'm talking about the set, we shot it in Amritsar before that. But the first day we entered there, and it just felt like I was too overwhelmed. I saw these 2 huge coaches standing over there, and I felt, oh my God, it's everything is here for the film that I'm going to make. And we're trying to figure out, like, we're doing a very small, action piece. So we took almost 2.5 hours to set that action piece over there. And it was a first action piece in the film, and we couldn't finish it. Of course, we couldn't finish it because it was, even despite the fact that it was a small thing, we just needed, like, it was a lot of teething problems were happening. The lights were not getting controlled properly because we still, so each light had a number and it was controlled from outside. So a lot of teething troubles were happening, but I think by the 3rd day or something we figured out, like, how to operate in this set. Even like, yeah, you're right when you're saying, even after doing so much of R&D, the first day itself was again an R&D. It was not. It was not like
because,
that.
You're building something, but actually shooting is a different thing.
We did a couple of tests also.
Right.
But the tests were like, you're just doing a test. It's not like, it doesn't involve and it doesn't involve performance, or it doesn't involve that, okay, this is a good take for me to, use it in the film.
Yeah.
By the time, in the second day or third day, we figured out our speed. Yeah, so it's a complete, like, I feel it's a full-fledged discovery process happened during that time.
So, like Aliens, which was your spiritual, film in your head, but for logistics or for inspiration, did you see any train set films like?
No, I didn't see train set film. I saw the making of Raid. And that helped a lot.
The making of Raid.
Yeah, the making of the Raid, because there are a couple of scenes in which they are moving the walls as the action is happening, and so yeah, that was something I saw. I saw the Atomic Blonde, the making of Atomic Blonde, because that is very, very interesting. How they were trying to do, like, one long take. So wanted to know how that is possible.
Right.
Tried to look for making of The Night Comes for Us. We were looking at these makings more than looking at the films. Because for film, I did not have a reference point, because my action style was very different from any other action style.
Right.
But yeah, we were looking at makings of all these films.
Right. So, this is the question that you may or may not be equipped to answer, but let me ask anyway. But why do you think we lag behind in the action space? As in, we have had good to decent action sequences, but when you look at something made in Hollywood or whatever it is, it's infinitely superior, right? Is it the budget? Is it just that they imagine more? Is it the commitment of the actors? Why is it that Indian action sequences typically tend to, it's only off late, like let's say the past 10 years, that once people like Yash Raj and Dharma started bringing in action coordinators from abroad, and maybe they are setting the standard. Because I remember watching Fan, and that rooftop chase was like, wow. And also that thing where Shah Rukh is on that building and going from window to window. I was like, wow, these are things that one doesn't typically see in our things. But because we believe more in fist fights and people throwing people in the air and things like that, why do you think there's that difference?
I feel it's the difference of the prep. It's just the prep. Because
the time for prep?
Yeah, the time for prep and the process of the prep. Just to give an example, we did each and every action piece which you see. One, it was penned down. Second, it was, so the previs happened. And every action piece was previs at least 3 to 4 times. And that took so much of, that it takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of, because it's not something, normally we over here, what we do is, we will shoot pe dekh lenge. That doesn't happen there. Everything is, the process is such that everything is prepped beforehand. They do even mock tests for an action piece. So, and they will call the actors, they will call everybody, they will do a mock test, they will shoot it on camera, then they will edit that, and then they will see, okay, this is working. Then they will go and do that action piece over there. So that's the difference. Right. Over here, we don't do this. Also, it is we are not able to do this also because of the budget issues, because we cannot. We cannot possibly, like, I wanted to do a mock test, but we didn't have that kind of budget. So what we did was we've just made sure that our previs is perfect, so that when we're shooting, it's just that previs which we're trying to replicate there. But what used to happen, we used to waste, it's calling waste only, because when I'm trying to set one action piece, the first 2 hours, it just goes in doing the same thing with the actors in that set. So for 2.5 hours, mera pura action, I'm playing that again with the camera. So I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing that on the set. So that's the difference. like it's not about the style of action. Like if you look at it, Avengers, or if you look at any superhero stories, they're doing the same. They're doing a very different kind of action. It's not a visceral action, or it's not a very raw action. But for that also, they do a lot of prep. It's a lot of prep which they perform, which we are not able to do because of our budgetary constraints.
Like I'm talking about even something like, let's take a Mission Impossible movie where I'm not talking about super elaborate sets or one thing, but there's one, I forget which one, but there's one where Tom Cruise is riding a motorbike, and this is one of the most standard things, right? It's like a bike chase or a car chase, but the bike almost touches the road. You know, he's like at such an angle, and you know that it's him, and it's not a double. I mean, even that kind of pushing the envelope, you know, doesn't really happen here all that much. And I was like, you know, this is not about equipment or whatever it is. What is it why doesn't that happen here? Is what I was.
It's, you know, the same thing over there. Like I was telling you, that the actors come and do it themselves over there. Over here, it is not possible because the actors are very busy, and the actors are not doing it over here. Of course, there are a lot of actors who do it, but you know, taking out that kind of time to prep for it, that's not a practice over here.
But they do one film at a time here, right?
Yeah, they do one film at a time.
Yeah.
But still, what happens is I think we've gotten used to the fact that we'll do it on the shoot.
Okay.
We'll do it on the shoot.
It's more like a culture thing.
Yeah, it's more like a culture thing. But I think it is changing a lot. And this used to happen like some 5 years back. Right now, even the actors are looking at, that's the reason why you're getting different kind of films in terms of action. Like in Jawan, the action was very good, because I'm sure, I don't know what has happened, but I'm sure they must have given so much of time in that.
Right.
That's the reason why it looks so nice.
Right. Or that single take Tiger Shroff thing in War.
In War.
Yeah.
Because when I saw War, I was blown away. I said, wow, what this is something which we are not used to in Indian cinema, and they've done it. And so Hrithik and both Tiger, they did fantastic. I'm sure they must have practiced it. That's the only way. There is no other way they could have done it.
Yeah. So is there also a reason? Was there ever a time you after writing the script that you said, "Let me look for stars," or was it always going to be this cast?
No. So you know, I knew what kind of a film I'm making. Also, it's because in the closed set, it is not like I have a lot of space. So that I knew very, very well what kind of an action I want to do. For this, I needed somebody who could train for a longer time. So Lakshya trained for almost 8 months, and every day 4 to 5 hours. That's a huge commitment, and I didn't know that any star would give me that kind of a time. Like,
Right. When you say train, what do you mean exactly?
So they
Give me an example.
Yeah, so he's playing a commando, but so Lakshya still knows, because his earlier work, it required some kind of a physical training. But as a commando, you need to be aware of martial arts the way a commando is trained in. So Mr. O and Parvez Bhai, both
The action
choreographers, so the first time he was like physically being trained in an open area. Then he was trained in a hall. Then he was trained with like people to get that combat, to have that combat training. Because we were shooting action at one go. And if we're shooting action in one go, that means that we're shooting almost for 8 to 9 hours action every day. So your body needs to be physically trained to do that kind of an action. Also, I was shooting, so I was taking longer takes. That means if there is a cut, like if I've not liked the take, I'm going to be starting from point 1 again. Which means that he has to keep doing that, like physically he should be so fit that he can keep doing that for 8 hours or 9 hours. So that required like a lot of stamina. So that was one part of it. The second was training, as in combat training. So he's going to be fighting as a commando, so he needs to know those 6 or 7 different martial arts in how normally an Indian commando is trained in. So he needs to know all the moves. He needs to know the postures, and it's just not, just not how you're going to kick, but after you kick and you stand. That's also important, because the commandos do not, like, they have a very different, because they're called constant alert. They're not it's not like just you kick and then you stay in the air just to show your swag. It is not like that. So you have to come back and you have to be prepared for another hit. So all that training happened. Then the training was fine. You've gotten used to this hall, but this is not the place he's going to fight. He's going to fight in a closed place. So we built a mock set, and then he trained over there with the other goons. So the other goons, like, I had to cast them, because there were a lot of performances. When you see the film, you'll realize that the goons, they have performances. Like, it's not just that they are stuntmen.
Yeah.
So they were trained. Like, we cast them and we trained them for 3 months, because they had to, fight like goons. There was no style to them. They were street fighters.
Yeah.
So both of them, like the commandos, Abhishek and Laksh, they had to train with the goons and to fight them, and there was no style in it. So that needed to happen. Also, the biggest thing in action training is to how to save yourself, not to how to kick the other person, because kicking is easier. You should not get hurt. So that's a learning process, because normally when the training started, a lot of people used to get hurt. But slowly, even the goons and Abhishek and Laksh, they started, and Laksh trained so well that while shooting, a lot of times he would teach the goons, the actors who were playing goons, that you should fight like this, you should save yourself like this. So it required a lot of extensive training.
Right. So how many injuries were sustained on set?
Almost every day. Almost every.
So you had like a doctor on
Yeah,
set?
we had like 2 doctors on the set. And but these were minor injuries, because Mr. Rowe and Mr. Parvez are action choreographers. They had taken a lot of precaution. So every place was padded up. Everything, whatever you see, everything was padded up. So that's why the injuries were not of any bigger size. They were like very smaller injuries. Somebody would get hurt in the in the elbow or on knee or shoulder, but there would be injuries every day. Like Laksh got hit in his eye, in his shoulder, in his neck. Tulika fell and she broke her arm. So there's that scene where she's running and she falls down when Raghav is chasing her. When she fell down, she broke her arm. So yeah, every day there were injuries, every day.
Right. So yeah, so it was clearly a very logistical.
Yeah, logistical nightmare. It was a logistical nightmare.
Right.
And if you ask me whether it can be like it can be done again, I don't know, because it was something which just happened.
Right. And it probably was very draining as well.
Yeah, it was very draining. And I like I was telling you, just 1 month before I suffered a slip disc, and I'm shooting an action film. So there's so many times that I'm showing the action and I can't bend down, but I have to bend down and I have to show. So there was a bed which was just next to my monitor. So I would shoot that, and I would I would finish one portion of the shoot, and if we're changing the set, we're changing that direction, then I would go and lie down, and I would lie down for some 15-20 minutes and again come back. So this was like a regular, like for all those 66, 68 days, I was doing the same thing.
So thank you for your time. This is, this could be, like longer and a bigger masterclass on how to make an action movie, but we'll save that for later. Do you have any idea what you're doing next?
I'm writing another action film, but let's see. It's set in mythology, so let's see.
Are you also looking at a similar kind of genre flavor?
No.
This is.
I've done this.
So, just to get back to one last question, how long did this script take to write?
It took me 1.5 years.
1.5 years. That is from concept to. I mean, you wrote like you had a one line or a
yeah,
two-pager or something.
Yeah, a 2-pager in 2016.
Right.
But in 2019 December, I spoke to Guneet and I started writing in somewhere around March 2020, just when the lockdown started, 2020. So it took 1.5 years to write the script.
Right, and it took that much time because
Because I was writing the action. You know, the biggest challenge was writing the action.
Right.
And there are some 18, 19 action pieces. So I finished, like I finished the first draft in say 3.5 months because I'd seen the story, so I finished it. But then I was not like, it's not there. It's
Then the
definitely
rewrites,
not there.
yeah.
Yeah. So what I normally do is I finish when I'm writing that draft. I see the main protagonists and the antagonist. They are set. Now then, my second draft would be the other primary actors. Then another draft would be on the secondary actors. So each draft I keep like using the other actors and enhancing their character graphs.
Right. Yeah, good luck with your next film and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Lovely talking to you.
GT Holidays, South India's #1 travel brand.
Jenson and Nicholson paints. Whenever you see color, think of us.
GUVI, a vernacular edutech brand, skilling everyone everywhere.